It made me really angry and feeling hopeless that I had to spend time and money travelling across the country to Melbourne to have this testing conducted while I was feeling so unwell. Hi, my name's Kylie and I will be sharing my UTI story. I'm 52 and I live in Perth, Western Australia, and my UTI started around October 2023. I'm hoping that sharing my story will normalise discussion around chronic UTI, highlight how important it is to advocate for yourself even in the face of opposition, and to help those around us be empathetic to our suffering. I want to encourage people to be proactive by researching and helping others where they can. Helping others with this condition has given me so much more in return, and I'm really grateful for that. It all began when I started to have some perimenopause symptoms. Fortunately, I found a really great menopause specialist GP in Perth, and she started to help me with this. I was trialling HRT, but within a month or two, I started having other symptoms, a urinary urgency, pelvic pressure and pain, overactive bladder, and my GP thought that I'd developed a UTI. She started me on the first of many antibiotics to treat the UTI. All my symptoms were pointing to that, although I'd only had a negative urine culture through testing. I guess I was lucky, though, that my GP was okay to treat me based on symptoms. However, that treatment in Australia at the moment is really only a 5 to 7 day course of antibiotics, and that's all I got. But I felt that I relapsed after these antibiotics were finished. My GP was away on leave by this point, so I had to go and see someone I didn't know. And this GP refused to give me any more antibiotics unless I could produce her with a positive urine culture for infection. Finally, after a few weeks, I tested positive on a culture. The bug that I had, she said, was an unusual one, and I have no idea how I may have contracted it. So I was given 2 lots of antibiotics, a short course for a week to try and get rid of it. Those antibiotics didn't help, and I was still very symptomatic at this stage, and I was getting worse. By this point, I was really unwell and I needed time off work. I could barely walk without being in excruciating pain. I went back to my GP, to the GP, as mine was still away on leave, and that's where I pretty much lost hope. This GP refused to treat me, told me I was imagining the pain, and literally laughed at me until I left her office. And she said, "There's no positive culture. Don't be ridiculous. You don't need antibiotics." So I was left with no treatment, worsening pain. I remember driving home that day in the car, crying, feeling hopeless, thinking that there's no end to this. It's going to get worse. Nobody believes me. There's nothing that can be done. How am I going to live with this? So after being refused antibiotic treatment by this GP, I ended up having to present to hospital for help. My husband practically carried me into the hospital emergency department. They did every test on me: renal ultrasounds, CT scans, MRI, bloods, urines, several really uncomfortable vaginal exams. All with negative results. And it was quite mortifying, really, to be put through all of that. I was basically sent home on pain relief with an antibiotic script for 7 days, just in case. Otherwise, drink lots of water and you'll be fine. Unfortunately, I deteriorated that day and evening so badly, my husband had to take me to a different hospital. They admitted me for 4 days. I was put on IV antibiotics and given some pretty strong pain relief. Again, all the tests that they performed were negative. I had infectious diseases doctors, urologists looking at me. All the urine cultures continued to be negative. So they didn't know what to do with me. So they told me I had interstitial cystitis and it was a bit of bad luck and there was nothing that could be done about it except pain management. So my future was managing chronic pain and I was sent home. So after much desperate research, I figured out that I likely had a chronic UTI. Further research and reading told me there was going to be no specialist in Australia that would diagnose, let alone treat this condition. It's not recognised here in Australia yet, despite it being recognised as a diagnosable condition by the NHS in the UK for maybe 2 years. So I had to go overseas for treatment if I wanted to get better. But at this point I was willing to do anything, and at least now I had hope. I contacted a chronic UTI specialist in Harley Street in London for a telehealth appointment. I then started doing long-term first-generation antibiotic treatment and Hiprex. They diagnosed me with an embedded infection of the bladder or a chronic UTI. I'm still undergoing treatment. I'm now 9 or 10 months into that. So thankfully my regular women's menopause GP came back from leave. She accepted the chronic UTI diagnosis and she supports my treatment plan from Harley Street. In conjunction with this, she also treats my perimenopause symptoms and is helping me greatly. I also have pelvic health physiotherapy is required to assist with all the pelvic problems that the chronic UTI has seemed to have brought about. Before this, I had no problems. I'm on HRT. I take vaginal estrogen, and I also have regular naturopath appointments to try and combat the effects that the antibiotics are having on my body. That having the chronic UTI has affected me in so many ways. My personal relationships have definitely suffered. Most friends and some family did not really understand the enormity of what I've been going through and how badly it affects me physically and psychologically. I'd stopped going to social gatherings and celebrations for quite a while. I would always be worrying about what I was eating or drinking, if this was going to make my pain worse, where the nearest toilets were, when the next lot of antibiotics had to be taken. It was like a mission to leave the house sometimes. It was even difficult to respond to voice messages and text messages at times, as I just didn't have the positive mental outlook to communicate normally with people. I could not concentrate at work. I was physically and mentally exhausted after being there for only a few hours. My previous active lifestyle completely stopped. Even a walk outside could bring on the most horrific pelvic pain, and it would be flaring for days, if not weeks afterwards. So I developed a bit of a fear of exercising or moving. Thankfully now I'm back to walking each day and practicing yoga, which is a good start. So my treatment has improved my pelvic pain immensely. The vaginal estrogen has been really good for strengthening my urinary tract tissue and health. The long-term full-dose antibiotic treatment's working. I have less occurrence of pain as the months go by, with some totally pain-free days and even weeks stringed together. I have side effects though. There's a feeling of fatigue, like my body's running on a constant treadmill and I can never catch my breath and I can't get off the treadmill. My body's working overtime to heal itself. I've had changes in bowel habits, on and off nausea a lot of the time. But it's worth it because I think the treatment's obviously working. The psychological impact of chronic UTI and undergoing the antibiotic treatment, though, has been tough. the knowledge that I'm subjecting myself to full dose daily antibiotics and other medications, you worry what it's doing to the rest of your body, and if it's going to be doing damage that you can't repair or will take a long time to repair. You're worried that you'll become immune to the effects of antibiotics, and that's one of the biggest fears, that they'll stop working. So it's constant fear and worry that occupies your mind day and night whilst on the treatment, that you won't get better, and that you're going to damage parts of yourself whilst you're trying to rid yourself of the chronic infection. The things that have made a difference to me through the journey so far is having a supportive husband that's done everything he can, even there was nothing that could be done really, to help me cope with my pain, and my poor mental health has made a really big difference to me not giving up. He stood firm and advocated for me when I had nothing left in the tank and couldn't do it for myself anymore. He held our family together through the worst of it, really. I've had the support of my family reminding me of the person I was before all of this, and they give me faith that I will be that person again, and that hopefully one day this will come to an end. Really importantly, I have friends to lean on. They've seen me at my absolute worst. They don't judge me for it. It's been so important. These people were there at the start of my journey, and are still here now supporting me and helping me as much as they can, and I'm eternally grateful for them. It's helped me immensely to have contact with other sufferers of chronic UTI, who do truly understand firsthand the pain, suffering and trauma that you're going through. They offer words of encouragement, wisdom, experience, so I know I'm not alone in all of this, that it isn't just happening to me. I have an amazing supportive GP that's willing to listen and try a form of treatment not usually recognised in Australia. She's encouraged me to trust myself and works with me, not against me, and she's really good at thinking outside of the box, and there's not enough like her. Really, without access to the chronic UTI specialists in London through telehealth, and through my GP willing to work with them, I would not be getting better. So it's still an uphill battle. I struggle every day to accept that this is my life going forward. There's an underlying voice in my head that tries to convince me that I'll never truly be free of it. At times it's hard to maintain hope of having a normal pre-chronic UTI life. I still feel at times like my family deserve a healthy wife and mother, and that somehow I've let them down. I had a lot of anger about the lack of understanding of this condition amongst the medical profession in Australia, anger about the suffering I've endured and that others are enduring, as it's so difficult to access any medical help for chronic UTI here. I'm combating this by trying to advocate for others with the condition and trying to help with providing testing services where there were none before. I found trying to obtain an immediate unspun urine microscopy in Western Australia to help guide my treatment through Harley Street specialists was impossible. It made me really angry and feeling hopeless that I had to spend time and money travelling across the country to Melbourne to have this testing conducted while I was feeling so unwell. There are so many others that feel the same way. They need access to testing, and something needed to be done to provide it for them. So I've organised for a close friend of mine who's a registered nurse to fly with me to Melbourne to receive training on how to conduct the urine microscopy testing with a lab there. We've invested in the equipment and advocated for a free clinic space where we're now able to help other sufferers of chronic UTI in Western Australia access the testing they need. We won't turn anyone away. It has been invaluable in my own recovery pathway, really, to try and help others who are on the same journey. I'm trying my hardest to advocate for chronic UTI sufferers in my work, in my social life, to try and normalise the conversation around the condition. I will keep going until we have chronic UTI recognised and appropriate treatment and testing readily available here in Australia. Something has to change. My story is not unique in that I've spoken to so many others now that have had the same experiences as me, the same unhelpful doctors, unhelpful tests, inability to access the required testing, misdiagnoses, unsympathetic people. My advice would be to not stop advocating for yourself. If you think something's wrong, you're most likely correct. You know yourself. You need to keep fighting for what you need to get better. Arm yourself with information and take someone who's on your side with you to your appointments. Most of all, don't give up. You can get better and the suffering will ease. You're not alone in this. There's people who understand your experience of chronic UTI, others who know the same suffering, who can validate how you feel and what you're going through. Reach out to those people as they once would have done the same for support, help and advice. There is absolutely light at the end of the tunnel. Half the battle is being heard. On the right treatment, you can get better and improve your quality of life, but it's baby steps. And as I say, every pain-free day is a win.
Hi, I'm Bianca from Love. I hope you found this video helpful. There's no single approach that will work for everyone when it comes to health, so I invite you to watch more patient videos here or read more stories over on our website, liveutafree.com, and take what resonates with your journey. Remember, it's always best to consult with a clinician before trying something new. If you'd like to share your own story, please get in touch. Our info is in the description. And feel free to reach out with any question about patient stories, finding a clinician, or your own personal experience. Also check out the description below for more helpful resources. If you find these videos valuable and would like to support what we do, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell button to stay updated when we post new content. Thanks so much for watching and for being part of this community, and remember, your story matters.